What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I got another Piers Morgan debate. You know, I love these, you guys. I hope you guys enjoy these as well. You know, I love them. Got Cenk Uygur coming in on this. I love to debate Cenk Uygur. Of course, I'm not really debating Cenk Uygur. I'm kind of just refuting stuff he says. But on this panel we've got coming up, we've got one of the most annoying voices I think I've ever heard in my entire life. It's crazy. You'll hear it. I believe it's on the last segment. But we got Cenk coming in, so before we get into this thing, I need you guys to do me a big favor and smash that like button for me if you don't mind. I would appreciate it. And subscribe if you're new around here. That would also be greatly appreciated. You know, I need the viewership, if you will. I need you guys to help me out. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. That's always great. It's always a plus if you could do that. You ain't got to, but you know it is what it is. The only way to help me out, help me expand and grow is you guys. So if you could do that, I would appreciate it. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this thing right quick. Check this out, y'all.
We don't want to have a situation where inflammatory rhetoric amplified to the extent that Elon's X feed is obviously huge. All these things get gazillions of views. We don't want to have members of parliament or members of Congress or anybody else actually having their lives threatened, as she has now had since this tweet, apparently, this post, having her life threatened in a country where 2 members of parliament in the last 10 years have been murdered by people who don't agree with their views.
Right. There's one unifying theme in all the things that we've discussed, and it hasn't been mentioned yet, which is that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So why did the Catholic priest scandal take so long to be exposed? Because at the time, Catholic priests had enormous power in the UK, in the US, and all over the world. I think what you guys are trying to point out with this idea that some were a little afraid to point out this Pakistani Muslim gang in northern England is that because minorities had some degree of power where they could challenge people of being racist or bigoted, etc., and it made people a little bit reticent to call them out. Now, the reality is, of course, you should call out wrongdoers, no matter what religion they're in, whether it's Catholics, Muslims, or any other thing. But it also connects to Elon Musk, because now he has a lot of power, bordering on absolute power. And how is he abusing that? Well, number one, by making wild charges against others, and that's a huge problem. Number two, he's beginning to censor people on X, just like he said was the reason he bought it in the first place, so that he could end that censorship. And you can see a very clear pattern. Whoever criticizes Elon Musk gets censored. So we transfer power from Catholics to minorities, now to gigantic donors. And by the way, to what Vinny complained about, he's right. There's no reason why all these people should be getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom like Soros. And by the way, also Miriam Adelson. Trump gave her the Presidential Medal of Freedom because her husband gave over $200 million to Donald Trump in different campaign contributions. We're now giving out these incredible honors as tchotchkes, as little throw-in prizes like Ginsu knives, because the donors run the place, and they're the ones with the most power. And we have to keep in mind, whether it's George Soros on the left or Elon Musk on the right, that at the end of the day, they are donors who are in it for themselves and their own power.
Yeah, I mean, Vinny, I think
And can I just make one more point about that?
Yeah, you
just
can.
tagging on to what Cenk just said. Elon is not even in it just for himself. He is a shill of the Chinese Communist Party. For all of his masquerading as some sort of maverick who always tells the truth and is always explicit in his views and out there and always says what he thinks, he has never once criticized the CCP. The opposite. He is constantly saying embarrassing, humiliating, bending the knee things about how great the Chinese Communist Party is, because of course his entire supply chain for Tesla is in China. So when they asked him to build a showroom for Tesla in Xinjiang, where the genocide of the Uyghurs is happening, he said, I would love to, and he went ahead and did it. So this is a person who is totally in the pocket of the CCP. To see him as anything else than an actual apparatchik of China is to really miss, I think, the forest for the trees.
Yeah, I think you make some points a lot of people have made. I've seen it on X all day long, actually.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised Piers Morgan is agreeing with this, but, you know, leave it to Piers Morgan. He's just, you know, he's in it for the toxicity, if you will. He wants those clicks. He wants the likes. He wants all that garbage. So, you know, it is what it is. You know, some people just do what they do and you can't help it. But getting back to the subject at hand, This is something I can't stand, that's consistent on the left. These people, they just see the rich as this just bastion of evil, and anything they do, everything they do is evil because they're rich. Well, that's just not how reality works there, Chink. That's not how reality works. I'm sorry to break it to you. It's on stuff like this, right? Yeah, sure, some of the donors are bad, blah, blah, blah. You know, we don't really care about that. Anybody who lives in reality and cares about truth and cares about the facts will look at everything holistically, right? Just because these people donate hundreds of millions or whatever dollars, doesn't matter. Just because they donate money does not make them bad. You've got to look at the actions as to what they are doing and what they are getting in return for what they're donating, right? What has Elon Musk gotten in return for all of his donations? You might say, oh, well, Trump's not even in office yet. Well, yeah, of course, but we're going to see what's going to happen with this. You know, I will admit, yeah, sure, Elon Musk has been given a tremendous amount of power, but it's limited power. There are checks and balances on that power. We have the American government. We have all these different branches of government to keep other branches in check. What Elon Musk has been put in charge of is pretty much eliminating garbage from our budget. Where can that go wrong? Like, I understand. I understand. There can be some stuff go wrong from this, but it's not, you know, absolute power corrupting absolutely, right? Elon Musk has amassed a massive amount of power, sure, but what does he do with that power? Look what he's doing. He's bringing up all these issues like what they're talking about and putting them at the forefront where people need to discuss these things, like the scandal that has been going on in the UK. That's a good thing. What is wrong with that? I don't get these people whatsoever. Just, oh, well, just if you got money, it's evil, and we don't look at anything good. Sure, Elon Musk might not criticize the Chinese Communist Party. Sure, so what? Look what else he's doing over here. That's a massive amount of good things for this country. We just had that big H-1B debate go over, the H-1B visas or whatever, and yeah, that's something that needs to be brought to the forefront because there are cracks in the armor of the H-1B. There are things that slip through those cracks that we need to discuss. We need to hash all these things out. This is a good thing, right? This sparked what they called on the left a civil war within MAGA. Oh my God. Well, you know, Cenk does go on to say later in this debate that he thinks that's a good thing, that he criticizes the left because they're just looking and laughing at MAGA like, oh, you guys can't get along with each other anymore. They're just laughing and sopping it all up like it's great. Well, this is normal, y'all. Like, normal people have these differences of opinions, so we need to have some discussions to hash all these things out. H-1Bs are good. There is some bad about the H-1Bs. People are taking advantage of the system. Certain companies get these people, right? Instead of hiring American citizens, they hire these to pay them less. That does happen. I'm not trying to not admit that it doesn't happen, right? It does definitely happen, and that's something that needs to be worked out. Now, who is responsible for bringing this to the attention of MAGA or to the people in charge that are actually going to be able to hash these things out? Elon Musk, for crying out loud, and Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy is the one that started this whole thing off, right? And I totally agree with Vivek Ramaswamy. We have put Americans, we prioritize mediocrity over merit, essentially, is what Vivek Ramaswamy is trying to get at here. And this is true. It's not 100% all the way across the board, but a lot of Americans, they're entitled, blah, 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 blah. You get it, right? They just don't want to work hard. We've made this culture of ease, right? We want everything to be convenient. We want to get paid more than everybody else. And that leaves a lot of Americans entitled. Now, that is something a lot of Americans, they don't want to hear because it's the harsh truth that you're lazy, right? I'm right there with you. I like my conveniences. I like going to Starbucks. I like getting my coffee and doing all this and all that. But, you know, I'm one of these people. I have a day job, and then I do this on top of that, right? So I'll go and I install glass for a living. Install commercial storefront. You know, when you see a glass wall at your convenience store or a glass building. That's what I do for a living. So I work in construction. So I know the meaning of hard work. And that's the whole reason I got into this, right? This takes up a big portion of my day. Now, it's not hard physical labor, sure, but I'm still working. Like, I go to work, I work for 8 hours a day, then I come home and work for 6 hours doing this. So, you know, it's not the same as somebody that goes and works 14 or 16 hours out at one of these refineries. Sure, I grant you that, but I'm not what you would consider lazy. But there are a lot of people that are lazy, and that's something Vivek Ramaswamy is trying to point out, that our culture has become such that a lot of these companies, they're more willing to hire these people abroad, not because they're better, not because of any other reason other than a lot of these other places, they don't have this lazy, entitled culture that America has. And that's an issue that we need to address. If we want to be the leaders of the free world, we need to be the leaders of the free world. But enough of my ranting. Let's keep going, y'all.
Elon Musk, you know, he's gone from being this tech bro billionaire genius who does a range of amazing things to now he's Trump's right-hand guy. He's unelected. And he's now wanting to directly immerse himself into the politics of other countries. We saw it in Germany last week. We're seeing it in the UK now and so on. Is this a good thing for Elon Musk, for Donald Trump? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think Elon Musk is a complicated character. So people can be smart in some ways and not so informed in other ways. And so he might know how to run SpaceX and Starlink really well, but we've seen his flaws. We saw he way overpaid for Twitter. But I think that one of the things that he discovered, Piers, is, oh my God, I paid $44 billion for an amplifier in the form of Twitter, now X. But for $250 million, I bought the U.S. government because he gave a little over $250 million to Donald Trump. And now, he's in charge of all of the spending in the United States with his, so-called Doge thing, which is not a thing, really. It's made up by Donald Trump. It's just a way of giving his biggest donor the American government. And so Elon Musk is doing something that's rational now. He's going around seeing how many governments can he purchase, bully, intimidate, and do propaganda against and get his way. And in a sense, he's A/B testing. I can see it as a person who runs a digital media company. He's putting out messages against the left, the right, the middle, every way you can, and seeing what reaction he gets back. And based on the reaction, he then doubles down in one direction and then retracts in another direction. Remember, he originally was against Donald Trump. And after A/B testing on X, he decided to be for Donald Trump. So does he really have an ideology? No, not really. His ideology is what makes Elon Musk richer. So I think that if you're on the right, you've got to be concerned that you've got an out-of-control donor here who is kind of taking over the U.S. government and looking to take over more governments.
Right. I mean, you make the point he paid $44 billion for Twitter, now X, but it's estimated he's made $100 billion from a surge in the stock price of Tesla off the back of Trump's win. And he helped Trump win by promoting him so aggressively on X.
Yes, I know. Chink is still harping on this, right? Like, what are you doing here, Chink? What are you actually doing? This makes no sense whatsoever. Oh, he owns the American government. Now he's propagandizing the world to try to buy up other governments, like as if that's a thing, as if that's real. He's been put in charge, co-charge of a government, a branch of the government that doesn't even really exist, right? They are there to hash out, to remove all the pork from the government spending. That's what their job is. What in the hell is bad about this? They've already started doing the job. As a matter of fact, that department doesn't even exist yet, and they've already started doing the work. Just look at what took place with this last appropriations garbage spending package that they had put together, 1,500 pages of spending that Democrats were all on board with. And you know what? They got rid of let's see, how much was that? 1,200 pages. And passed a 300-page bill. They got rid of 1,200 pages of garbage spending. Okay, so how is this a bad thing? That is what he's in charge of, and Cenk and the left and all these people are trying to pretend like, oh, he's in charge of the U.S. government. Now he's trying to buy up foreign governments. That's not how reality works. That's not what is actually going on here. They are in charge of cleaning up our budget, which has severe problems, which has severe corrupt problems. You've got all these lobbyists. I know, here we go. Matt Van over here harping on lobbyists again. This is what I do. This is my favorite thing because I think the lobby institution in this country is the root of all corruption. For the government, for Congress. That's the root of the corruption because they pay off these congressmen to vote in their own interest. This is where Cenk gets this idea of these donors and all this because that's where that comes from. That's the problem. It's not necessarily people like Elon Musk, George Soros has his own issues, right? He's one of these World Economic Forum people that's a big problem. I'll take that back. People like Elon Musk, they're not really the problem. George Soros is a major problem, but these lobby institutions are also a major problem, a much bigger problem, in my opinion, right? Because they buy off these congressmen that then just forget about their constituents back home, forget about all this because they know that they can just lie to these people, and these people don't do any research on their own congressmen, which I'm constantly preaching. You should at least know the voting record of your congressman. Because I think, in my honest opinion, if people were a lot more informed about the voting record of their congressman, they would never vote for that congressman ever again, aside from a few congressmen, right? And I speak about these people all the time, but if you look at the voting records, right, they lie to you constantly to get you to believe that they're working for you, and they're only working in the interest of the lobby group that is paying them off under the freaking table, right? I heard this story on a podcast from one of these staffers that worked on the Hill. He said that there's these safes in these congressmen's rooms, right? That they don't really use them anymore, but back in the day, these lobby interest groups would come in there and they would shove money into these safes to buy off these congressmen because they couldn't give them cash, just give it to them directly. So they would put them in these safes. That's insane, but that still goes on till this day. That still goes on, not in the exact same way. These people get paid off, and that is the root of all the corruption in our damn government. And now Cenk is trying to come in and trying to act like Elon Musk is now the root of all evil in this country when he hasn't shown that. Look at what the hell he's doing. I can't stand this criticism, this just blind criticism of somebody, right? You most certainly have the right to criticize Elon Musk. Go right ahead. But if you're going to criticize somebody, at least in that same breath, look and evaluate whether what they're doing has a net gain or is a net negative, right? I believe, in my honest opinion, that the net gains that we're getting from what Elon Musk is doing far outweigh any negatives from, you got the world's most richest man donating to Donald Trump, another billionaire, right? Like, I just don't see the connection where this is such a bad thing, right? People aren't evil just because they have money. That's absolute power doesn't necessarily corrupt absolutely. That's not always the case with these things, right? It has the ability to do this, but not necessarily. There have been great rulers, great men that do great things with great power. This is just a reality, right? But we only remember the bad stuff because people are prone to pay attention to the negative because we're more likely to get engaged with something if it pisses us off. That's just how reality works. And we forget about stuff that people do that, is a net positive on society. I think what Elon Musk is doing, it should be commended, for crying out loud. But let's keep going and see where this leads us.
Can I jump in here
Piers,
for a minute, Piers?
Yeah, you
Elon
can.
Musk-
Okay, I'll bring in
go ahead.
Batia. Cenk has left us to switch his camera. He's having problems with his camera. He will be back. He hasn't fled in disgust. So, yeah, Batia, on this point.
Scared him.
I think it's very important that we ask, why are Americans talking about this 10-year-old case all of a sudden with so much vigor and so much interest? And the answer is because, as you led with, Piers, Elon Musk decided that this was going to be his cause du jour. And the reason that he decided that, it seems to me, is to distract from the massive debate that he launched about H-1B visas when he sided with foreign workers over American workers, and the fact that in response to criticism, he has begun censoring people on Twitter in exactly the same way that conservatives used to be censored on Twitter under the old regime. And in order to change the subject, he has decided to talk about this decade-old case in Britain and take up this character. And you are right, you are both right, it's not Islamophobic for people in England to debate this. But you know what I will not stand for? What will make somebody my enemy is if people in America decide to talk about our Muslim neighbors and friends and co-Americans who have nothing to do with this, and because a billionaire is throwing a tantrum and trying to change the subject, will suddenly start talking about people in a totally different country in a way that makes my neighbors feel uncomfortable, my neighbors feel unsafe in America. And I think that's a really important point to make.
Yeah, I do. I think it is a good point. I also think that Tommy Robinson has been deliberately amplified as a kind of hate figure by those who have a lot to hide in this scandal, because it suits them, because he is so discredited that he's the front man for this whole scandal, when in fact there is a genuine scandal that's been going on for many years. I mean, you may say, well, why is Elon getting involved now? I agree. However, he's not wrong. And actually, this scandal, I don't think we've even seen the tip of the iceberg of accountability. Not a single person in authority who was part of the cover-up has been held properly accountable or been put in prison. That is a disgrace.
Yeah, I'll tell you why Elon Musk is jumping on this, because of new information coming out, right? Tommy Robinson, he's in prison right now because of this, right? We look at this dude like, you know, like he said the other day, as some sort of freedom fighter. No, I'm sorry, that's not how he's portrayed. We just look at him as a Donald Trump type of figure. This guy brought some information to the forefront, and we see that the government of the UK is trying to silence this man. Okay? That's what's going on. That's what we see. That's it. That is the entirety of this thing. Sure, he may have his issues, blah, 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 blah. He's not a perfect person. Nobody is. But that's not what we don't really care about that. This guy exposed one of the largest scandals in United Kingdom history, for crying out loud. What's going on is absolutely disgusting. I'm not even going to mention that over here. But this lady coming in saying, stop talking about my neighbors and all this. Like, shut up with that voice, for one. That's one of the most annoying voices I think I've ever heard. But this is woke garbage. We don't care, right? Like, if these people feel bad because of something that's going on the other side of the world, right? If they feel unsafe, well, maybe they have a little bit of guilt right there. Why should they feel unsafe, for one? And secondly, what are they doing in their lives to make them respond in such a way that they feel unsafe? Like, hang on, this doesn't make any sense. Why are you standing up for these people when they have the ability to stand up for themselves? If they are not standing up for themselves, what does that say about what is really going on? And once again, just because Elon Musk brings this to attention, brings this idea, this scandal to the forefront, right, doesn't mean that all Muslims are being called out for this. That's not what that means at all. Like, I don't understand this idea that just because you call out that the certain group doing a bad thing is Muslim, that makes Muslims all over the world feel unsafe. How do you get to that point? There's no logical connection there at all. There's no logic connection between those two things. If you feel in such a manner that you're being looked at weird because this group that happens to identify in the same way that you do did a thing and people are mad about that thing, that's just your own self-conscience, right? Whether you feel guilt, whether you did anything wrong or not, right? You should not feel that way. Why do you feel compelled to feel unsafe because some Muslims over here are getting criticized for one of the worst atrocities a human can commit? Like, I just don't get this idea. I don't get the connection, right? You didn't have Catholics all over the world when this Catholic priest scandal came out, right? You didn't have all these Catholics feeling unsafe, right? We didn't hear you getting up and screaming about your Catholic neighbors feeling unsafe in their own communities. No, we didn't. Why? Because, most Catholics are predominantly white, and people don't care about white people because we're the oppressors, even though we're being oppressed right now to a certain degree. Or at least, we're kind of coming out of that, but we've still been pushed back to the forefront because we're the majority. Like, it's not our fault that we're the majority, for crying out loud. Like, just because we reproduce more of ourselves, it's our own fault for this? I just don't get these people at all. This woke ideology, this standing up for other people, it just doesn't make any sense to me because it's taken way too far. It's taken way too far. People push these ideas that most people aren't even in agreement with. I just don't understand these people, but I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one, y'all. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. It blows my freaking mind, some of this stuff. Like, it just, people being evil for the sake of being evil. I'm sorry, that's just not how the world works. Some people, sure, and some things, sure, but like Elon Musk, no, I'm sorry. Just because the dude has money and power and he's got a lot of it, doesn't mean he's evil. Just, you got to look at everything in totality, right, to see what's really going on, and I don't see any negatives. Oh, well, there's your criticism. He won't criticize the Chinese Communist Party, right? I went and researched all this, and I tried to find Musk criticizing the Chinese Communist Party, and I couldn't find anything, to be honest with you. But so what? He also hasn't criticized Switzerland, for crying out loud. But, so who cares, right? Like, so what? He does business with China. And he knows if he gets out there criticizing, that's a big portion of his company. As a matter of fact, to push back on that idea, he has a fiduciary responsibility not to criticize the Chinese Communist Party because of his companies. So, there you go. Is that an excuse? Is that a cop-out? Sure. But he still, regardless, he has a fiduciary duty to make sure his company, that he doesn't damage the brand name of Tesla or any of his other companies. So he kind of can't criticize the Chinese Communist Party. But, that's neither here nor there. I'm trying to wrap this thing up. Y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.